सदाशिवसमारम्भां
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे
परम्पराम्
ॐ
ॐ
सहना
सहना
भवतु
भवतु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै।
विद्विषावहै
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति शान्ति
शान्ति
शान्तिः। ॐ तत्सत्। ॐ नमः शिवाय।
नमः शिवाय।
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, so we are going to go to the next mantra, which is mantra number 4, third chapter, second section, mantra number 4, Mundaka Upanishad, in case we have forgotten. Okay, right. Now, so we will chant together. Nayam Atma Balahinena Labhyaha
Nayam
आत्मा
Balahinena
लभ्यः
Nacha Pramadat Tapaso Vapyalingat
Nacha
प्रमादात्
Tapaso
Aiter Upayer Yatate Yastu Vidwan
Aite
Yatate
Yatate
Vidvan
Tasyaisha Atma Vishate Brahmadhama.
Tasyaisha
आत्मा
Vishate
विशति
Brahma
ब्रह्मधाम।
So Shankara in his Bhashyam, in his introduction to this verse, reminds us, in fact summarizes the last verse, last mantra, where we said that the primary sadhana for moksha is what? That you have to choose the Atma. Choosing the Atma, we saw in the last class, was called mukshutvam. So unless mumukshutvam is there, everything else becomes meaningless. And here in this mantra, the Acharya adds 4 more sadhanas which are necessary. They are presented in a negative manner. So I will first just name out the sadhanas without the negation. The first one is balam. So balam is spiritual strength. Next one is apramadaha. Pramada means negligence. So apramada means non-negligence, being alert always, an alert life. Tapasaha here is to be taken as jnanam. Tapasa normally means austerity, but Shankara clarifies here that in the context of the flow of the mantras, tapasaha here means jnanam, and that is a very common interpretation of tapas in the scriptures, because it's also said that when Brahmaji wanted to create the world, he did tapas. There also tapas means jnanam. And the fourth one is lingam. Lingam normally means indicator, and here Shankara says that lingam means renunciation, sannyasa. So Shankara's interpretation of lingam is sannyasa. Now we look at the mantra in more detail. So these are 4 supporting sadhanas. The first and primary sadhana is mumukshutva. Then you have balam, apramadaha, tapas, and lingam. These are 4 supporting sadhanas. Now if you look at the mantra, it says Nayam Atma Balahinena Labhyaha. So you have to break that up. Na Ayam Atma. So Ayam Atma, this Atma, na cannot be Labhyaha, gained by Balahinena. Balam is strength. Hinam is not having. Balahinena, the one who does not have strength. So na Ayam Atma Balahinena Labhyaha. So you can rewrite that word Ayam Atma Balahinena na Labhyaha. This Atma cannot be gained by somebody who does not have strength. So strength normally means physical strength. So does it mean that I have to have six packs? Does it mean that I have to do my bull worker every day morning? No. So Shankara says here, balam here, Shankara defines very nicely. Atma nishtha janita viryam. That mental strength, that establishment, that focus on the Atma nishtha, that focus on the Atma, which is what generated by that strength, that mental strength, which is generated by the focus on the Atma. So Atma nishtha janita viryam. So that mental strength which comes out of choosing to know the Atma, of choosing mumukshutvam, that is called balam over here. So basically, the mental strength arising out of your commitment to moksha. That is the meaning of balam. So he says, na balahinena labhyaha. If you don't have that mental strength, you will not be able to understand the Atma. So physical strength is not being talked about. It's talked about the strength generated from the various sadhanas which you go through once you have chosen the Atma as your goal, once you have chosen moksha as your goal. So meditation, karma yoga, upasana yoga, everything is included here. Any sadhana that you do for chitta shuddhi does what? It essentially gives you chitta shuddhi, right? The chitta shuddhi part of it is being referred to as balam. The purity of mind, the mind becoming unshakable. So this knowledge becomes strong. And once the mind becomes unshakable, once chitta shuddhi is there, then only the knowledge is assimilated. Then only this knowledge becomes unshakable. Then only no more doubts will remain. Then only your emotional disturbances will disappear. Then only FIR becomes low. So all that is indicated by balam. And if you don't have that, then you are balahina without that balam. And if you don't have that balam, for you, moksha is far away. That's the first part. Then he says, na cha pramadat. So, na pramadat. Again, as you can see, the definition is negative. Balahinam means without the strength. So what is the qualification? You must have the spiritual strength generated out of all the sadhanas which you follow, generated out of the commitment towards moksha. Then nacha pramadat. So pramadam means one who is negligent. Nacha pramadat, the one who is not alert. So nacha pramadat, pramadam itself is the negative factor. Na pramadat. Na here is not to be connected to pramadat, right? Because then it means if you don't have negligence, you will not get moksha. So na has to be connected to labhyaha. So na labhyaha, that atma will not be gained by you pramadat. If you have got pramadam, if you are not alert. And the general meaning of pramadam is negligence. So Shankara comes in here and says, no, you have to be very careful. This pramadam here is the sangam, the attachment. And actually, it's a very nice definition he gives. I will read out Sanskrit definition to you and then I'll explain. He says, Laukika putra pashvadi vishaya sanga nimittaha. So, sanga nimittaha. That sanga nimitta means what? Nimittam is a karanam, a cause. Sanga nimittaha means cause for sangam, cause for attachment. And what is that attachment towards? Towards laukika putra pashvadi vishaya, towards things like worldly sons. Laukika putra is what? So laukika has to be taken as laukika objects, worldly objects. So attachment for worldly objects like putra, pashu, adi. That is sons, cattle, etc. Vishaya also, any objects. So here Shankara interprets pramada to mean your attachment towards anatma. That is what is called pramada. And therefore, apramada means non-attachment towards atma. You will have negative thoughts, you will have thoughts of attachment. But where for the sadhaka, for the seeker, what has to happen? Even as these thoughts arise, I have to dismiss those thoughts. I have to reject those thoughts because my focus should be only on moksha. So that is the second portion, second qualification. Then you can see that there is a part of the mantra which says tapaso. If you actually have to break it up, okay, nacha pramadat, that we have discussed. Then tapasaha. So tapaso va vapyalinga is written over there. So you have to break it up into tapasaha va api lingat. Tapasaha va api lingat. So let us look at the first one, tapasaha. Tapasa here means, as I said, Shankara says jnanam. Jnanam here means a committed long-term pursuit in the form of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam under a qualified teacher who teaches in a systematic manner. So there is a definition, a long-term pursuit of Vedanta under the guidance of a qualified Shrotriya Brahmanishta teacher. That is called Jnanam. Then only Jnanam will be there. And what is the summary of that Jnanam? We have seen long ago, many times actually. So I will just repeat it once more for our ease of understanding. So these are the 5 capsules of Vedanta. The summary of this Jnanam can be remembered if you remember these 5 points, 5 capsules of Vedanta, as SPG calls it. What is that? The first one is I am in the nature of the Nitya Sarvagataha Chaitanya. I am in the nature, my nature is eternal, all-pervading consciousness. Then, that's the first point. The second point is, I am the only source of permanent peace, security, and happiness. Everybody wants what? Peace, security, and happiness. Everybody wants it permanently, but they all look outwards for it, which is the mistake, because you yourself are that permanent source. Why? Because you are Sarvagataha Nitya Chaitanya. And therefore, you can be the only source of that permanent peace, security, and happiness. That is capsule 2. Capsule 3 is Sannidhi Matrena. By your mere presence, you give life to this body. And through this body, I experience, I give life to the body. And I experience the material universe and its pleasures and pains through this material body. It's a very important definition here because I, Chaitanyam, Sarvagataha, Nitya Chaitanyam, I am not capable of any experiencing. Why? Because I am Akarta, Abhokta. I cannot do, I cannot experience the phalam of any karma. And therefore, what happens is, because of the consciousness which I give to the material body, because of the life which I give to the body, I use that body to experience the material world. So the third point. Now, deriving out of these 3 points, if I am Sarvagataha Nityaha, if I am the only source of permanent peace and happiness, and if it is I who experience through the material body, then one more point here is that because I am not the material body, because I am experiencing the world through the body, therefore, once I understand that I am not the material body, then I am not affected by whatever happens in either the world or the body. And that is crucial. There will be pleasures, there will be pains which you are experiencing in your avatar in the material body. But that avatar is the RC, the reflected consciousness. It is not you, the OC. All pains, pleasures are experienced by the RC. It is the RC who is interacting. Remember, when I say I give life to the material body, that is in my the aspect of the OC, right? But when I say I experience the material universe through the material body, it is not I, the OC, who am experiencing. It is that false entity which has come into being because of my giving life to the body, that false entity is the RC, Chidabhasa. And therefore, it is the Chidabhasa, the RC, which is affected by whatever happens in the body or in the world. I, the OC, am not affected. So that is the fourth capsule. I am not affected by whatever happens in the material world or the body. And the last and most important thing is, because I am so closely associated with the material body and the material world, there is a tendency for me to identify with the body and think of myself as the body. But that is not my real nature. The RC cannot avoid pleasures and pains. The RC cannot avoid tragedy. But I, the OC, am different. I should always remember that I am OC. That is my real nature. If I forget my real nature, then I have identified with the RC and I have immediately converted my life into a terrible burden, into a bharam. It's a burden for me. I am beset by difficulties, problems throughout my life. But if after studying Vedanta, I have assimilated Vedanta, I remember my real nature, that I am OC, then for me, life becomes an entertainment, right? Remember the moment that life appears to be a burden, Shastra is warning you that you have forgotten the teaching. So that is a big warning. Wherever your life appears difficult and burdensome to you, remember that you have forgotten the teaching and go back to the teaching. What is the teaching? You are the OC, unaffected by anything. Okay. Then the tapasa, the knowledge part of it. Why all this I said? Because tapasa is to be connected to knowledge. If you have the knowledge, if you remember the knowledge, life will no longer be a burden. Then alingat. So alingat is the other one. Lingam, as I said, is a symbol, like Shiva Lingam, right? The stone is a symbol, it's an indicator. Indicator of what? Indicator that Shiva has been invoked on that stone. So for you, that stone is Shiva. So it's an indicator of Shiva. You are actually not worshipping a stone, you are worshipping Shiva itself. That is why it is called Shiva Lingam. So Lingam is a symbol by which you are able to translate something. Like the national flag. National flag is a symbol. It's not just a piece of cloth, right? The moment you look at the national flag, the entire nation comes before your eyes. So flag is a symbol for the nation. That's why it is so revered. That's why we have to revere the flag. That's why for you it is very sacred. That's why people are willing to lay down their lives for the flag. So it's a symbol. It indicates, it invokes the whole nation. The moment you stand in front of a flag, the nation is invoked for you. Bharat Mata is invoked for you. So similarly, here the lingam is something else. So here in this, what do you mean by say that one who does not have the lingam does not gain atma? Because the translation is called alingat. Alingat alabhya. The one who doesn't have the indicator will not get the atma, will not attain the atma. Shankara says lingam means sannyasa. Right? Now the question can come, why does Shankara say sannyasa is compulsory when in the very Shastram itself there are very many jnanis who are householders? There are grahastha jnanis, many of them. Janaka, for example, right? The grahastha jnanis are there. So why does Shankara say that sannyasa is compulsory? We have already seen this in Bhagavad Gita. Do you remember? Anybody?
Ravichi,
Yes, Tatanji.
see, here it's talking about mental detachment. Sannyasa is generally detachment, non-attachment. So the mental detachment part is probably what is referred to.
Absolutely. Very good. So when Shankara says sannyasa, of course, in Shankaras, I've told you many times before. First, Shankara, if you are not a sannyasi, in wearing the orange, wearing the yellow robe or the saffron robe, you are not a human being. But That is not a proper interpretation, because there are many jnanis who are referred to in the Shastra who are not sannyasis. And therefore, Anandagiri writes a tika. The tika is a commentary on the Bhashya, a sub-commentary on the Bhashyam itself. Bhashyam is a commentary. Tika is a sub-commentary. Tikakara it is called, the one who comments on the commentary. So there's a very famous Tikakara called Anandagiri. He says that the word sannyasa, when Shankara uses, he is referring to antara sannyasa, mental sannyasa, internal sannyasa, which is what? Renunciation of your identification with the body, renunciation of all your worries, and very importantly, there's a word over here, sarva vishesha prathana, renunciation of special prathanas for anybody. Why is that considered part of a sannyasi? Sarva vishesha prathana. Any special prayers for anybody, including your own body, you have to renounce. Why? Because a special prayer comes into being only when there is attachment. Right? So there is a prayer called Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, which is a very nice prayer. It means let everybody in the world be happy. Right? Now there are many people who say Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha and add, please keep my grandson safe. Is that necessary? No. Because in survey, your grandson has also come. And therefore, the moment you put a prayer for a particular person, it's an indicator of attachment. And sannyasis, as the word itself indicates, sannyasaha, having renounced all relationships, all abhimana, all chinta, all worries have been relinquished, all identification with individual bodies have been relinquished. Relationships are relinquished mentally. You don't have to walk out of your house, but mentally you are a sannyasi. And that is what Anandagiri says is the lingam. That is the lingam, that mental detachment, that complete and exclusive pursuit of Vedanta. It is not physical renunciation. Sannyasi is not a person who physically renounces the world. Here, sannyasi is the person who has a mental mindset that everything can be put aside in my journey towards moksha. And therefore, here when the mantra says alingam, it means mumukshutvam should be there. That complete, absolute commitment to Vedanta, which is necessary, that should be there. Without that internal renunciation, without that complete commitment, without that tivra mumukshutvam, that very sharp or very strong mumukshutvam, atma na labhya, you will not get the atma. Right? So by saying this, Shankara, or not Shankara, but the mantra is saying that this mokshu, he is making a statement to the world that I am interested only in moksha. I am not a competitor to anybody else in this world. Okay. Then we go to the next line, the third line. Etair upayir yatate. So that has to be broken up completely. Etaihi upayai upaihi upaya hi yatate. Etaihi upaya hi yatate. Yaha vidvan. So yastu vidvan is yaha vidvan. So yaha vidvan, those wise people, etaihi upayaihi, with these upayas, with these means. Upaya means means. In Hindi also it means the upaya, which is subdivision. With these means. Etaihi upayahi. These means. What are these means? Whatever we have talked about. The primary one, the mumukshutvam, plus all the four supporting ones we have talked about. So with all these primary and supporting means, what do? Yatate. They strive. They strive for what? For moksha. So when we talk about means, there are always two types of means. The primary one, jnanam, which is tapaha, we refer to in this mantra, which is shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. and everything else is for Chitta Shuddhi. Everything else is secondary supporting means. The understanding is that without the supporting means which are meant to give you Chitta Shuddhi, the primary one cannot be utilized. It will not work on you, right? Therefore, whenever the term sadhana is used, we need to mention whether it is jnana sadhana or karma sadhana, whether it is the primary sadhana or the secondary sadhana. But when you use the term upaya, it covers both, because every activity in your life can be converted into the secondary sadhana always. So everything that you do, he makes an effort. Okay. Now a question can come up. It says Vidwan over here in the third line of the mantra. Vidwan is a jnani. So why should a jnani be talked about? Because if he's already a Vidwan, he does not need to come to Vedanta, because Vidwan means jnani, right? So Shankara gives a very interesting answer. He says, this Vidwan's knowledge. So he's talking about this Vidwan. This Vidwan means the Vidwan referred to in this mantra, third line of the mantra. This Vidwan's knowledge is Paroksha Jnanam. What is Paroksha Jnanam?
And that which is um, indirect knowledge, and that which is not assimilated as yet.
To put it more correctly, your knowledge of any worldly object is Paroksha Jnanam, right? So if you say this is a glass, you are the knower, the glass is the known. So Paroksha Jnanam. And so when Shankara says that this Vidwan's knowledge of Brahman is Paroksha Jnanam, he is meaning that this Vidwan is the Pramata, he is the knower. Brahman is the Pramayam, which is the known, and therefore his knowledge is in, if you want to use Sanskrit terms, Brahman Asti. Brahma Asti. Brahman exists. This is the knowledge. The moment you say Brahman exists, in normal parlance, what are you saying? I am the knower, Brahman is the known. There is a duality. Okay. So Shankara says this Paroksha Jnanam is very, very necessary first, at the first stage. Why? He gives a reason. He says you cannot inquire into an object which you don't know about. An unknown object cannot be inquired into. Right? It's a very interesting statement. If you know about an object, then only can you inquire into the object. So he's saying that something has to be at least partially known. Then only you can inquire into it. You get the point? Supposing you don't know about the existence of a thing called Brahman, of an entity called Brahman, how will you inquire into it? And therefore, the first stage is to know that Brahman exists. This is what is the entire purpose of the Karma Kanda, to tell you that Ishvara is there, Brahman is there. So Karma Kanda gives you Paroksha Jnanam, that there is Brahman, Brahman Asti. That is Paroksha Jnanam. After the inquiry, that Asti will turn into Asmi, and your knowledge from Brahma Asti will become Brahmasmi. So your knowledge from Brahman exists will get converted into I am that Brahman. So that is what is meant here. Well, Vidwan here means the person who is a religious person, who has gone through Karma Kanda, who is leading a religious life, and therefore who believes that Brahman exists. But he doesn't know that he is that Brahman. So that person is the person who is the candidate. And after Jnanam, after he goes through Jnanam, what happens? That is the last line. Tasyesha Atma Vishate Brahmadhama. Tasya, for that. Tasya eshaha. Tasya, for that person. For which person? For that Vidwan who knew that Brahman exists, Brahma asti. After this jnanam, what will happen? Tasya, for that person, esha atma, this jivatma, Brahma dhama vishate. Vishate means enters or merges, right? So Brahma dhama, dhama normally means residence or abode. So Brahma dhama, if you take the literal meaning, will become abode of Brahman, which is Brahma. Abode of Brahman is where?
Within me and everywhere.
Is everywhere. Okay, so this person, Brahma Dhamma Vishate, merges into Sarvatma, into everything. Now, Shankara doesn't comment on this word, very interestingly. Okay, so the normal meaning of, as I said, the normal meaning is Dhamma, but what is the definition of Brahman? Sarva Gataha. It is all pervading, it is infinite, Nityam. And what is Nityam can never be taken as a residence, can never be taken as a abode. And if you look at the Sanskrit dictionary, there is another meaning of the word Dhamma, that is Prakasha, the light, or Swarupam. So we can take the meaning of Prakasha, we can take the meaning of Swarupam also. The Brahmadhamma can have three meanings: the abode of Brahman, the effulgence of Brahman, Prakashaha, or Brahma Swarupam, the nature of Brahman. And this third meaning is the best meaning to take over here. I am discussing this because normally we go by Shankara's commentary. Shankara has left this to us, thinking that we are all Shankaracharyas, so we don't want to bother about this. So the idea is this Jivatma merges into the Paramatma, which means the best meaning is therefore that this Jivatma discovers his Brahma Swarupam. Therefore, the best meaning of Dhamma is Swarupam. He discovers that he is Paramatma only when all these conditions are fulfilled. And therefore, this merger has to be understood as what? I've said it many times before. Only the rejection of the idea that I am different from Paramatma. When the Jivatma sadhaka rejects the idea, drops the idea that he is different from Paramatma, then it is called merger. Okay, so very, very important word, mantra. We will look at the next mantra, 3 to 5. So let us read it. Samprapyena mrashayo jnanatriptaha
Samprapyena mrishyo jnanatryptaः
kritat mano vitaragah prashantaha
कृतात्मानो वीतरागाः प्रशान्ताः
kritat mano vitaraga prashantaha
कृतात्मानो वीतरागाः प्रशान्ताः
te sarvagam sarvatah prapya dhiraha
ते सर्वगं सर्वतः प्राप्य धीराः
yuktat manah sarvam eva vishanti
युक्तात्मानः सर्वमेवाविशन्ति.
Okay, so in the last mantra it was said what? That vishate brahmadhama, atma, jivatma vishate brahmadhama, jivatma merges into brahmadhama or enters into brahmadhama. So there's a Purvapakshi who says, Katham Brahma Samvishata. How does this Jivatma enter Brahman? And this confusion occurs because The word vishate, the verb vishate, literally verb means to enter. And the entry is always karma. Even if you take merger or enter, all these are kriyapad, verbs, right? Any verb denotes action. Therefore, entry denotes action, merger denotes action. Therefore, this Purvapakshi says that there is something wrong in the interpretation because any action is karma. And therefore, are you saying that by entering, he gets moksha? Because if you are saying that, then you are saying that moksha is a karma phalam. What is the problem with moksha being karma phalam? By now you should know the answer.
Then it will no longer be moksha because the karma phalam means a rebirth, punarjanma.
No. He's saying karma phalam is moksha, not punajanma.
Karma phalam is finite.
Finite, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Karma means a phalam which comes through karma. You have to understand. Karma phalam is a phalam which comes through karma. Therefore, there is a time. There is a time being indicated when moksha comes. What is the time? When the karma is over. So when Vishate is over, when you have entered Brahman, then you have become Brahman. That's what it means, right? So that means that at a particular point of time only moksha comes. Which means what? What comes must also go. And therefore, whatever comes will go. Therefore, this moksha has to be finite, has to be temporary, which means that it's not moksha. And therefore, Shruti here in this mantra is telling us that is not the interpretation to be given. Right? So, this mantra is basically an explanation of the word entry, Vishate. So, this mantra and the next mantra, 5 and 6, 5 and 6, they are very, very, beautiful mantras where the entire summary of all the sadhanas necessary are for to achieve moksha are put together, right? The mantra, of course, the mantras together, of course, like all mantras in the Vedas, they are not very systematic. They put the sadhana in here and there. Basically, why? Because the meter of the mantra has to be maintained. The meter to maintain the meter, they will add a little bit here and there, right? And rearrange the sadhanas. They're not in the necessary order. So we have to rearrange mentally and put the whole thing in the necessary order. So look at the third line. There is dhiraha. Dhiraha is normally means viveki, discriminative person. Who is the discriminative person? You have to lift the idea from Tattvaboda. Who understands Nitya, Anitya, Vivekaha. Who understands that Anitya objects are only for entertainment, can never give security, and only Nitya object, Brahman or Ishvara, can give security. So, while I can enjoy the world for peace, security, and happiness, the three words I used earlier also, for peace, security, and happiness, you have only one person to turn to. You can use two terms for that one entity. Ishvara is the religious term, the theological term Ishvara. The same term, the same entity referred to in Vedantic language is Brahman. And turning towards Brahman or turning towards Ishvara means what? Turning away from Anitya to Nitya. Therefore, the differentiation of Nitya Anitya is necessary. So, Dhiraha here means Vivekaha, right? Of the, so to recall sadhana chatushtayam, then all these things will be very clear. So vivekaha here is dhiraha, the distinction between nitya and nitya. The next step is vitaragaha. Vita means dropping, free of. Ragaha means attachment. So vitaragaha is also another word for it is vairagyam, right? Now vairagyam does not mean that you hate the world. right? But Vairagyam, a lot of people, in fact, in Malayalam, the word Vairagyam itself means hate, if I'm not wrong. And many South Indian languages may have that. But Vairagyam is dispassion. Understanding the real value of something is Vairagyam. Like when you want to buy, let us say, clothes, you do not go to electronics shop, right? There is Vairagyam towards the electronics shop when your objective is to buy clothes. Does it mean you hate the electronics shop? No, it doesn't mean that. The simple reason you don't go there is what? Because you know that what you want, the clothes, are not available in the electronics shop. So that is Vairagyam. Very, very, beautiful definition. To know that you don't need to dislike something. So similarly, when you want security, you know that security is not available in the world. It doesn't mean that you hate the world. But just like you ignore the electronic shop and go to the clothes shop, when you're looking for security or peace or happiness, you ignore the world because these three are not available in the world, and you go to Ishvara. This is mumukshutva. So first one is vivekaha, second one is mumukshutva, a vairagya. Then third one is prashantaha, mental tranquility. That is in second line. Vitaraga and prashantaha are both in the second line. Prashantaha is mental tranquility. Literally means peaceful. You have to add mental to it. So mental tranquility, which means that you learn not to nourish, or you establish the mental control not to nourish thoughts which are not conducive to your occupation of moksha. Which is, remember that we said in the Gita, you cannot control the arrival of thoughts. We said the primary thoughts because they are generated from your very nature, from the very raga dvesha which has come with you when you are born. There are many thoughts which come. Right? They're generated by your nature, by your swarupam. And therefore, you cannot control the arrival. You should not feel disturbed when they arrive. You should not feel guilty when they arrive. You simply look at them when they arrive, acknowledge that they are there, and ignore them. Right? Ignoring these thoughts requires healthy distractions, some sort of other activity where I can engage my mind, some japa, some puja. So ideally, the way to achieve mental tranquility is not to dwell on negative thoughts. Negative thoughts will come always for everybody. But those negative thoughts have to be seen as negative and have to be seen as something which your mind cannot help but throw because of its very nature. You just replace them with positive thoughts or other thoughts. Think about something else. And this was referred to in Tattvabodha as what? We are connecting everything.
Sama and Dhamma.
Samaha. Right?
Samaha.
Samaha is mano nigraha, thought discipline. Remember that it is not some sort of a state where there is no thoughts, a thoughtless state. It's not some sort of mental silence. But it is a readiness that these things will happen because of the nature of my mind, and I am not going to be disturbed. So it means that you are, now if you have to do this regularly, you have to build a relationship with Ishvara through your daily prayers. Only if you have daily prayers, you'll be able to switch your mind to positive thoughts whenever there is a problem. So if you're doing japa daily, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, and every day half an hour you're doing that in the morning in your meditation or in your prayer room, what is the advantage? That is building a groove in your mind. And the moment disturbing thought comes, what you do is your mind should switch to the japa. The thought it'll remain there, but it'll be not nourished at all. Right? So that's what we're talking about here. Prashantaha, mano nigraha. Then next one is Yukta Atmanaha. This is in line number 4. Yukta Atmanaha. Yukta means having chosen. So, learning to pay attention to something which you are doing. Yukta Atmanaha, the one who is able to focus his mind. So, in this class, for example, your attention must be there on what I am saying throughout for the period of 1 hour. So, attention must be there is number 1. The attention span should be extended slowly, 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 so that it covers the entire period of Shravana. And this is called, in Tattva, what is it called?
Chitta Ekagrata.
Chitta Ekagrata is the definition. What is it called? Sorry?
Samadhanam.
Samadhanam. Very good. Your Tattva is good. Yuktatmana is Samadhanam. Then I will, then there's a Rishayaha. The Rishayaha is where? Rishaya is in the first line. We must all become Rishis. Right? Rishaya means Rishis. And the word Rishi is derived from the Sanskrit Dhatu, the root Rish. If you look at the Dhatu Patha, you will see Rish means Janati, the one who knows. Thus, all of us should engage in knowing, which is Shravanam. So, spiritual education we should be doing. Should be coming to Shravanam regularly. Then, Enam Samprapya. The Samprapya, Enam, Rishaya. That is the 3 words in the first word, compound word. There are 3 words. Samprapya, Enam, Rishaya. Rishaya we have seen. The other 2 words are Enam, Samprapya. Attain Enam. Samprapya means to get. Enam is this Atma. Attain this Gnana. Enam Samprapya. You have to obtain this Atma. You have to get this Atma. How do you do that? You have to do Shravanam, Mananam, and consciously train your mind or train yourself to think of yourself as consciousness alone. That Atma I am. Aham Brahmasmi is this meaning of Enam Samprapya, constantly dwelling on the fact that I am Brahman. I am Brahman and I am able to think because I have a temporary body which is mine for the moment, for this lifetime, because of the various laws of karma. This RC has certain karma. I am giving that RC my consciousness, then existence, everything I am giving. But I am the OC. And therefore, that Enam Samprapya, that Atma, that OC, I have to claim myself as. Then second line, Kritat Manaha. So here, Atma is the mind, Krita is purification. So Kritat Manaha, having purified my mind by all the upayas, by all the sadhanas, and therefore become a Vitaragaha. Without any raga I have become, without any passion I have become, Chitta Shuddhi I have got. With this, I have, what has happened? Now, Shankara gives a very beautiful definition of the word Kritatmanaha, right? So, it's a very wonderful definition. I will read the Sanskrit and I will try to explain it to you as best as I can. So, he says, Atmanaha Nishpannaha Santaha. Santaha is like saying is or having done, right? Atmanaha here means you or the Jivatma. Atmanaha Santaha, the Jivatma has Nishpannaha. Nishpannaha means evolved or transformed. So, Atmanaha Nishpannaha Santaha, the Jivatma has transformed himself into what? Paramatma Sarupam. So, the Jivatma has converted himself into Paramatma. That is the meaning of the word Kritatmanaha. Having done what is required to be done, having converted yourself from your status of Jivatma to Paramatma, essentially meaning what? I have dropped the idea that I am Jivatma and I am now completely, accepted the idea that I am Paramatma. I have got Jnana Nishtha. Then there is a eighth one, Jnana Triptaha. Jnana Triptaha is in the first line. There is Jnana Tripti, complete satisfaction born out of Jnana, right? What does it mean? Again, every time we say this, we have to talk about each part of the word. So, Jnanam is Atmajnanam. So, here it is being said that there is a complete satisfaction arising out of the knowledge that I am Brahman. So, remember that as long as you claim yourself as Ahankara, that complete satisfaction can never be there. So, here it is being said that Ahankara you have to drop. You have to drop the idea that you are the RC, hand that RC over to Ishvara. What is left is the OC. Claim yourself as that Atma. So claiming Purnatvam, claiming yourself as Brahman, that is called Jnana Triptaha over here. And if you are Jnana Triptaha, then what will happen? Then look at the third line. Te Sarvagam Sarvataha Prapya Dhiraha. Sarvagam means all-pervading Paramatma. It's a technical term for Brahman. Sarvagam, all-pervading Paramatma. Sarvagam, Sarvatra. Sarvatra means, literally means everywhere. Okay. So these two words have to be understood carefully. Into that all-pervading Paramatma, into that Sarvagam, this Jivatma merges, enters. How does he enter? With Jivatma? Dhiraha. So Dhiraha is the Viveki, person who has the discrimination and who has done SMN and assimilated. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasam, he has done and assimilated. That person, Prapya here is to be taken as merging again. That person merges into that all-pervading Paramatma, Sarvatraha, everywhere. So very odd usage of words, right? Merges everywhere means what? This Brahman is all-pervading Brahman. He is there everywhere. And Sarvatra, this Jivatma merges everywhere into that Brahman. What does it mean? He merges totally. There is no question of having become part of Brahman. So that is why the word Sarvatra is used here. There is no question of becoming part of Brahman. And why is this said? Because there are many interpretations where you say that the Jivatma is part of Brahman and he merges into Brahman as one part and remains there. So to exclude that, we are saying Sarvagam Sarvataha. This Jivatma merges totally into Brahman. It is not that this Jivatma will now exist in one corner of Brahman. He is gone. There is no differentiation now. He as infinite as Brahman is. There is now no differentiation at all. Because whenever you say Brahman, remember, you're talking about infinity. And the number of infinities can only be one. Because the moment you talk about two infinities, then one infinity is the boundary for the other infinity. Therefore, neither is infinite. And therefore, here, Sarvagam Sarvatra Prapyaha. He has merged seamlessly into that infinite Brahman. There is now no difference between the two. There is only one Brahman. And if something has to merge into something else and leave no differentiation, then that merger can only be in the form of knowledge that I am Brahman. It means that the distinction that I am not Brahman was an error. The moment that error is dropped, what happens? I have merged seamlessly with Brahman. I have also become infinite. And so he says, Sarvam eva avishanti. They have merged completely with that Sarvam, with that Brahman, with the Vishwarupa. They themselves have become Vishwarupa, avishanti. They enter that Brahman, that totality. Now, Shankara in his commentary adds, avishanti. The question can be, they enter the totality. When? Shankara says, Sharire patakale. Sharire, patanam means to drop. Shariram patanam is dropping the body. Kale is time. Shariram patakali. At the time of the fall of the body, this Jivatma, he acquires the Swarupam of Brahman. He becomes Brahman. There is now no more difference between Brahman and this Jivatma. And Shankara, to make it clear, he gives an example. Just like when a pot is broken, the space in the pot merges with the total space. It's a very beautiful example. Because even when the pot was there, the space was there. We say it is pot space, but really speaking, the pot existed in the space. The pot did not displace the space. The pot remained in it, right? And when the pot broke, what disappeared was the pot. Nothing happened to the space. So unlike when you put your hand into water, your hand displaces the water, right? Unlike that, when whatever is in the space, that pot, it does not divide the space. There is no division between pot space and total space. The division is only seemingly so. And therefore, here also the word Vishanti, entry, has to be understood as having a meaning. That word entry has a specific meaning only with reference to the Upadi, like the Ghatakasha merging with the Mahaakasha. That statement itself, that Ghatakasha merges with Mahaakasha, that the pot space merges with the total space, that statement has a meaning only when the word pot is the frame of reference for you. If the pot was not there, there is no question of any pot space. Therefore, there is no question of any pot space merging with total space. Similarly, when you say Jivatma enters into Brahman, it can have a meaning only if the body of the Jivatma is the reference. And therefore, here, the word Avishanti is to be taken as Videha Mukti. Remember that up to Jnana Triptaha in our discussions, up to Jnana Triptaha, the body is there. He is a Jivan Muktaha. And Sarvam Eva Vishanti, this is Videha Mukti. So both Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti have been talked about in this mantra. With this, I'll stop for today. Any questions? Very beautiful mantras. And I would urge all of you all to at least, chant them regularly, so that the Parayanam of mantra is not just for sake of showing off that I know the Upanishad by heart. That mantra repeats in your mind, and as you study, the meaning becomes clear. So at a particular stage, in fact, in the Shastra it is said that once you have come to a particular stage of study, then you should be not chanting, things like Vishnu Sahasranamam, all those things. Instead of that, you should be chanting the Vedic mantras, chanting Upanishads. You can do that now. So this will stop for today. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om.
Om. Acharya ji.